All time is there at the same time. So while we are talking, your birth and my birth are still there. She looked around and she saw this big presence, this powerful, really, she said it was so powerful, this something that was there. And she asked, and who might you be? And then this powerful something said to her,
have you heard many people talking about seeing during their near-death experience beings that were not of this world? Maybe what we would call aliens, maybe somebody of a different dimension, that sort of thing?
Actually, I did.
This is Beyond with Heather Tesch, where we examine near-death experiences and life itself, hopefully making this life a little better. Hello and welcome back, everybody. Once again, my guest is Robert Christophor Coppes. Hello, Bob. So wonderful to have you here.
Nice to be back again after the break.
You study near-death experiences, and I think it's really a treat to be able to talk to you because people have so many questions when they listen to one near-death experience or another one, and we've been able to talk about just some of the things that they have in common and why there may be differences. Another really big question that people have is, why do we suffer? What have you learned about that?
Oh, that's another good question. You have so many of those. Why do we suffer? That's actually the question, why are we on Earth? That's behind this. And actually in my book, where I have hundreds of quotes of NDEs, there's a chapter on that, on why are we on Earth. And the interesting thing is, some NDEs ask why that is. Bluntly, they ask that bluntly. And some NDEs don't ask it, but they get it as a bonus. They get that some kind of information. And the interesting thing is, it is not all the same answer. There's different answers, and that makes it so intriguing. Why is that? Why don't they give just one answer? And I don't know that. But the answers vary. It's like, mainly it's about love, understanding love, allowing or giving God or the source the possibility to experience life in a setting that is limited, as we spoke about previously. This is a limited environment compared to the other environment. So the source understands what it is to be in such an environment, to experience life through us, because we are all parts of the source. That is my feeling, and that's also what many NDEs say.
I've heard that a lot as well. And one viewer reached out to me in the comments after we had discussed something like that on a podcast, one of our episodes.
Yes.
And she said, when has God experienced enough? When is there enough murder or torture or abuse? And I thought that was a really, really interesting question. Do you have any idea on that? I know that's a tough one.
And interestingly, I'll give you a quote from one of the NDEs in my book that I really like very much. She had her NDE, and at that moment, she said, I understood everything. It was so clear. It was so easy. She pictured it as an ant walking on a human arm. She said, the ant doesn't know there is much more to the whole thing than only the place where the ant is walking. It cannot see the whole thing. Same with us here. And she said, I had to go back to my body because there were things for me to do. So I deliberately chose to keep this information that would say it all into one sentence. And she held on to that one sentence. And that one sentence is, all is everything and everything is one. All is everything and everything is one. And that is just one of the many quotes in my book that allude to the fact that we are all one, but we don't see it because we are separated for the time being. When we die, we will go back again to the source, and we will become part of the source again. And that's how I see it. And then your question, when is it enough? It is enough when we understand that what I do to you, I actually do to myself. And we have a long way to go. We have still a long way to go. And I hope that people with NDEs will step out and will say their stories, and that veridical observations will make people understand that there is something real going on with NDEs, that they are not just fairy tales, but they are actually real.
That makes so much sense. You explained that very well. Thank you. And it is one of the great things, I think the comforting things when I hear about near-death experiences is that oneness, and then also just that love that people feel. I assume you've heard lots of stories about the love that people encounter.
Yeah, actually, in most of the NDEs, almost all of them, they talk about this love, or the unconditional love. And Anita Marjani even went further. She's not the only one. She says the term unconditional love it doesn't cover it. It's much bigger. It's more than that. It's unexplainable, but that's what it is, and that's something that awaits us all. That's also what I believe.
It's very comforting. Another thing that I assume people have talked a lot about that you've heard in your research is this sense of timelessness.
Oh yeah,
And I will tell you, that's one of the hardest things for me
yeah.
to get my mind around. Have you ever had somebody explain it in a really easy to understand way?
No, not really. But the quotes are interesting. Like the best quote I love in this respect is, "All time is there at the same time." All time is there at the same time. So while we are talking, your birth and my birth are still there. They're at the moment. It's going on. It's interesting you cannot, this is difficult to wrap your head around. Another
Yes.
person said, my experience, or my NDE, didn't take place in time, but it was between time. And another NDE said it's like a layered cake. You can, it's not that you go smooth, you don't go smooth over the cake, but you can look through the cake. You can slice through the cake and you see all the layers, something like that. It's, when I read it, I said to myself, I still don't understand it.
My limited brain keeps saying, well, if it all happens at once, it's all over at once. And I know that's not what it is, but I can't quite
But
grasp
that's
it.
also what people say. There's an NDErs who had to go back again, and she went back because she thought, well, it's just a nick of a time that I go back again to this wonderful environment. But that's not the case. When you're here, it seems like ages. When you're on the other side, it's really no time at all. And thinking about that, that all time is there at the same time, it is something that I thought of as well. And I go into extremes in my thoughts. Because when you talk about reincarnation, the idea is that you reincarnate in the future, not in the past. That's interesting to think about. When you think about that time is there all at the same time, why not reincarnate in the past? Another thing is that if we are all one and time is not an issue, then actually it's not necessary for us. Well, who is us? For us to have several lives, because we have all. Well, the source has all the lives. The source leads all the lives. He or she, it leads your life, it leads my life, it leads the life of every one of your listeners. So then you don't need to have reincarnation, because we have all our lives. Having said that, I know there are stories of people who can really recount lives that have been in the past. I believe those lives have been there. And sometimes it's even proven that these lives have really taken place. I do believe that's the case, but it still doesn't. I think the real thing is more complicated than how we think about reincarnation. That's what I tried to say. And I heard one NDE say, well, it's not that we reincarnate, God reincarnates. And I love that.
That makes a lot of sense, because I have often wondered, is it that we live multiple lives, or is it just that we are part of that collective, so we are familiar with all of the lives? So that does make a lot of sense to me, what you're saying. I know it's still not an easy concept. Certainly the time part, that doesn't make sense to me.
I don't say that this is the case. I don't know. You know, what I always say is, if there is one person talking to you saying they know it all, they know how it works on the other side, turn your heels, run away as quickly as possible, because that's impossible. I don't believe it's anyone can really know what it's all about, because we are limited here. That we are in a limited environment. We have limited brains.
I've often said that the more I know, the less I know. And I really think of now as my beliefs as evolving over time, because they really aren't static. As we go through life, as we hear more stories, as we learn ourselves about different things, um, it can change our perspective. So I know there's so much we can't grasp, but it sure is fun trying to understand what we can.
It's nice to do that, and to that's part of being spiritual, because then you know that it starts with understanding that this environment that we are in, this material environment, sitting on a chair, having to do your groceries every day, that's not all. There's more, and that more is wonderful, even though there are distressing NDEs. And I again, what I said, those I believe that those will change into blissful ones. Actually, there are a few people in my book. The impressions of near-death experiences. There are two people that I quote that say. One says, "I was told during my NDE that there is no hell and no purgatory. That's it. No hell, no purgatory. So there's only one thing. It's dualism is here on earth. It's not in the other side. There's only one." And the other person said, "We all go home, and home is this wonderful place where we came from. That's our origin, the source." And I believe in those quotes.
It is a lot to wrap our minds around, and it is good to hear all of the various perspectives, because I think it gives us a better understanding to hear many of these near-death experiencers. I want to take a moment to do kind of a fun question
Okay,
that a lot of people are curious about.
I'll hold on to my chair.
Okay. Have you heard many people talking about seeing during their near-death experience beings that were not of this world? Maybe what we would call aliens, maybe somebody of a different dimension, that sort of thing?
Actually, I did. And having said that, I'll come to that later. Having said that, you know, aliens or non-terrestrials, non-earthlings, you know, this universe is so big, and perhaps there are also more than one universe. And in the universe, there are so many galaxies, billions of those. And in those galaxies, there's billions of stars and billions of planets. Why would we be the only ones? That's one thing.
Yes.
But that's thinking logically. in NDEs, I've heard of one person telling her story that she died. Um, the reason I can't remember again, but in any case, she passed away, and she was taken into this flying um, device that was very modern, very um, uh, yeah, very high techniques, and she was taken away to this other realm, and there she met Jesus, um, and she saw this wonderful environment with wonderful buildings and grass and this wonderful environment that she stayed in for a little while. And then she had to go back again because they said to her, if you don't go quickly back again, we cannot mend you again. Then you're really dead and you need to go back. There's things for you to do. So the same thing that you hear in NDEs where it says you have to go back and quickly, because otherwise we can't get everything attached and wired again. So you need to go now. And in that case, she went back into this spaceship kind of thing. And she, in a nick of a time, in a second, she was at her body and she dropped into it. So I heard there are several stories where these things play out in an NDE. Yes.
I also think that more people are becoming comfortable with sharing those types of stories because it seems to me, just talking to people in the near death experience community, that people sometimes experience things that they're afraid to mention just because it sounds too out there.
Yeah, I understand that. And I do, talking about spaceships and extraterrestrials in the context of an NDE, I think that makes sense because, as I told in the beginning, every story is different. There are many stories of people going to this other realm in a different way, and this is just one way. There are also stories of people that were abducted by extraterrestrials and being tortured and stuff like that. I tend not to believe in that because what I know from NDEs that they are in general, they are blissful. Um, I know that there are distressful ones, so maybe a number of them are distressful, but in in principle, I have there's something that I don't understand there. So I'm just a researcher. This is where my brain stops because I don't understand it. We need to know more about that. But it could well be that these are two different stories. One story, one part of the story being more hallucinations with extraterrestrials, and others that are really intertwined with an NDE. So that might be different. I don't know. I don't know. It needs more research.
Bob, you've shared so many neat stories that you've heard. Do you have a couple of favorite ones that you can share with us?
Yeah, the one that I told you already with the Dutch lady, but there is another one that I really like. It's Christina. She had her NDE. She was at the conference too. It was wonderful to meet her there. She had her NDE as a consequence of something nasty, something terrible. She was abducted. Not every NDE starts with a clean heart attack or so.
And this was abducted by humans, just
Yeah, yeah. So she was abducted by two men and they tried to drown her. While she was underwater, she could look up through the water. She saw his face, but she could also see the sun. At the same time, she looked down onto this scene with the guy trying to drown her. So she had the dual point of view, and that's something that you see more often, that you hear more often. Then her father heard her uh, before screaming, and he came. She saw him coming over, but then she had her NDE, and in her NDE, she was not allowed to proceed any further. There was someone blocking the way, and she said it could only have been God. She was 8 years old. And she said, and God had a conversation with her, and God said, you need to go back. And life is not very difficult because there's only 4 ingredients and they are sort of easy. He made it sound like it was easy. And the ingredients were like love others, be loved by others, just be, just be, and experience life. Experience life. That's what we all do. The first 2 are more difficult. It's like love and be loved. And another one that I really liked too, maybe I can, do you have time for that one?
Sure.
It is a woman who had her NDE, and she thought it was funny because she was thinking, I'm still thinking, so I'm still there, but my body is gone. And she was giggling, and then suddenly there was also a big presence behind her, and she looked over her shoulder, and that made her giggle because she thought, well, I'm dead, I don't have any shoulders to look over. But she did it anyway. She looked around and she saw this big presence, this powerful, really, she said it was so powerful, this something that was there. And she asked, and who might you be? And then this powerful something said to her, uh, um, you are the image and the likeness, and I'm the original. And now, if you know the Bible, that's in the very start. It says that God created man in his image and likeness. So God is the original, and we are the image and likeness. And that's what this huge something said to this woman, this NDE. And I thought that was interesting. And the funny thing was that she had always been very interested in the very first part of the Bible, because she always went to that particular place where that was said, and she didn't understand it. And now she had it in her NDE. That also shows that things pop up in your NDE that are really in your mind, that you have some kind of command over your NDE. That's also something that I discovered.
And of course, it's the consciousness that continues. Some critics will say, well, you're just thinking it in your brain, but it's really the consciousness that
Yes.
people are connecting with.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Bob, I've so enjoyed talking to you. I know
Me
that
too.
people,
I love this. It was
oh,
wonderful. Really. Thank you.
oh, it's my pleasure, totally. And I know that people that are listening are going to want to hear more about you and your book. So can you fill us in and where people can find more information, all of that good stuff?
Yeah, my book is called Impressions of Near-Death Experiences because I don't think you can really define what an NDE is. So by giving hundreds of quotes ordered in these 12 chapters that go into specific details, it gives an impression of what an NDE is. That's why the book is called Impressions of Near-Death Experiences. And they can buy it on internet through Amazon. It's on Amazon. It's an IANDS publication. I'm very proud that IANDS published it. And if people have questions, they can always get to me through my website, and it's bobcoppes.com. So Bob, and then Coppes is written like COPPES.com. And I'll always answer questions. I never forgo them.
And if folks are looking for the book, I will have a link in the description along with all of your links. And keep in mind that the book is under Robert Christophor Coppes.
Because that's my full name. I love the middle part, Christophor.
I do too. Well, you have a great name. It's, as I said, it's really been a pleasure. Are there any parting words that you want to leave with the people that are listening right now?
There actually is. What I learned from one of the NDEs is that the little things count in your life. You will see them during your NDE. She looked at her life review once and saw the big picture, and then she went into the details, and she saw that she could have smiled more to people. Now, what I try to do in Amsterdam is smile 3 times a day at people that I don't know. It doesn't count if I smile to someone I know. But unknown people, just random people, I count them, and it's at least 3 a day that I try to do. And it's interesting what kind of reactions you get. So this is my task that I give to your listeners and to you for tomorrow. Try to do that and find out that sometimes you have to step over a little hobble to go there, to do it.
That is great advice. And I do also believe that it is all the small things we do, because all the small things add up and they have a ripple effect out through our communities and our world. And I think that is something very important to leave on. Bob, again, my pleasure. Absolutely. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
You are welcome. Bye-bye. I really had a nice time having this conversation with Bob. He really is a wealth of knowledge, and I loved some of the examples that he shared with us. It was fun just discussing some of these concepts that, we still don't have the answers for, but things that we are trying to learn more about. I would love to know what your thoughts are. So please share your thoughts in the comments. And if you prefer just to say you made it, that is always okay with me. I do really appreciate you commenting. It means a lot to the channel, but also I really love connecting with you. So thank you. If you are new here today and you want to hear more of my episodes, I always have a link to that in the description. Just click the word more that opens up the description. You'll find a link to my playlist. You'll also find all of Bob's information there. So it really is a great resource, no matter what guest I have on. Thank you again, everybody, for being here today. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. I truly, truly am. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining me on Beyond with Heather Tesch. Please add comments and questions you'd like future guests to answer. Also, if you liked what you heard, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. That'll help keep this podcast going. You can also go to Beyond with Heather Tesch to look for more episodes.